The best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Take your check. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just drop. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Welcome back, DFS Army. This is FantasyFling. We are looking at the Yahoo DFS main slate for Week 14. So let's get started and check it out. All right, so we're going to start off looking at the Vegas lines. These obviously kind of give us a guide of certain game environments that we like to target. So first off, kind of a low week, not surprising, right? We've had a lot of low weeks. So, there's certain game environments that are going to stand out among others. So, and the other games we're certainly looking to take pieces from. First off, we got the New York Jets at Buffalo this time. So this is a 44-point game total. The Buffalo Bills do have a high game total in this one, so 26 points. Obviously, the odds makers in Vegas thinks that Buffalo is going to bounce back this time against the Jets. That was certainly not a good game for them the last time they played the Jets, but this one is at home. Now, on the Jets side, obviously, Garrett Wilson is always in play. Mike White is definitely an upgrade over Zach Wilson, and really just getting the offense going with Mike White targeting Garrett Wilson, just kind of letting him do his thing. I believe he got like 15 targets last week. Just absolutely smashed. Just a very good young wide receiver. And then Zonovan Knight coming along. Now, Michael Carter is expected back this week. So we probably, outside of like large field GPPs, you're not really going to want to take any chances there. Now, on the Buffalo side, obviously Josh Allen is in play. Now, one thing to be a little wary of is Sauce Gardner on Stephon Diggs. Because of that, I probably would be more willing to play Gabriel Davis this week. Love Gabriel Davis and Josh Allen stacks in tournaments. Josh Allen, he is definitely in play as a cash game quarterback for me. As far as his pass catchers and cash, I think there's better places to go. But Gabe Davis in tournaments, of course, Dawson Knox. I love that. Now, Cleveland and Cincinnati. So last week we saw the return of Deshaun Watson, and he looked very rusty. So that offense was just horrible, mainly just because of how Watson played. So nothing really got going for them. And this week they get a Cincinnati team that is coming off their second win in as many years against Kansas City. They just seem to have Kansas City's number. So they're playing really hot right now, look great. We got Jamar Chase back. Higgins is healthy. So really, and hopefully this week you'll get Joe Mixon back out of concussion protocol. So you'll have the offense exactly how it's supposed to look. It seems like it hasn't been like that all season. I know it has, but it's been quite a while. And they have a 26-point team total. This game has a 47-point total. I don't really like anything on the Cleveland side. On Cincinnati side, I love Joe Mixon this week because Cleveland is just a very bad team against the run. They give up over 5.5 points over average to the running back. So if Mixon plays this week, I love him in all formats. Obviously, Joe Burrow and Chase, Higgins, you name it. There's a lot of different stacking options if you like that in tournaments, specifically if Joe Mixon ends up being mega chalk this week as a way to get leverage off the field, playing some Burrow stacks in that game. Now, the next game, Houston going against the Cowboys. Yeah, so no Kyle Allen this week. Davis Mills is back, which is good because Kyle Allen was horrible last week. Going against Cleveland's defense scored like 30 points. He was just throwing high a lot, and just the offense was not going well for him, throwing high and obviously creating turnovers and whatnot. So this week, Dallas comes to town. They scored 50 plus points last week against Indianapolis, and both running backs look really good for Dallas this week. They project really well. I love Tony Pollard and Zeke. Now, Pollard is $30 and Zeke's going to be $24, and Zeke gets in the end zone. So he seems to be more of a safer cash play for me just based on his salary and, him getting those goal line carries. But I love Pollard in tournaments, really this week setup, you could probably play both of them for sure. I wouldn't do it in the same lineup, but definitely have exposure to both backs. And then CD Lamb, like him this week on the Houston side, there's not really a whole lot to like for Houston except for Damian Pierce, just because his price remains low. So based on his usage, seeing 15 plus touches a game and only being $16, he certainly play. Now, if Brandon Cooks comes back this week, he could be very cheap. So it's something to keep an eye on as well. So this is the game that we want to target this week. Minnesota going against Detroit. This is projected as a back and forth game. Detroit is great at home. We love them at home. This is when they do the best. 27-point game total. Our team total, rather, for Detroit. Minnesota, 25-point team total. And then 52.5. So not very good defenses on both sides, but playmakers on both sides. So this is the type of game you want to heavily stack, of course. Amon-Ra, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, of course, he's always in play and getting the goal line carries. He's had multiple 2 to 3 touchdown games. And then on the Minnesota side, it's Delvin Cook's in play. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson going against his old team. So there's a lot of ways you can go with this game. Obviously, DFS Army was all over Amon-Ra last week, and he smashed. And he's got another great matchup this week, and he's continuing to be really underpriced compared to his ceiling over on Yahoo. So love him this week. Now, next game, Philly at the Giants. I don't love this game. I really there's nothing on the Giants side that I really like this week with a very low team total and pretty low game total. Obviously, on Philly's side, they're always in play, right? So Jalen Hurts, certainly, I love him in cash this week. AJ Brown, of course, is in play as well. It's probably one of those weeks where if you're doing Philly stacks, it's probably just going to be a +1. Not always going to be a +2 like we saw last week, whether you do Devonta or AJ, and I'd probably keep it Hurts +1 with those stacks, but, not forcing a bring back on the Giants side. Of course, Barkley did look really good running the ball last week, and he, I still think he's due for a ceiling game this year, but he just doesn't seem to be getting enough volume, enough opportunities with that offense to, have a ceiling type game. So he's really, for Barkley to do so, he's going to have a game where he breaks one for 70 plus yards. So next we got Baltimore and the Steelers. This is a very low game total. Not really anything that I like here. Tyler Huntley could be in play. We'll take a look at him in the Dom station as far as fantasy points per dollar. And, him and Mark Andrews, they did last year. Tyler Huntley, I remember this on DraftKings, was in the Millie Maker at least once, I believe multiple times, and he brought Andrews with him. So they did have a good connection. This is just a really low game total, though, so probably just an avoid for me. Jacksonville going against Tennessee. Tennessee got smacked around last week. Apparently, their owner had seen enough. You trade A.J. Brown, then he goes off on us. So they fired their GM, who they had just extended. Crazy. I feel like there's more to it, but we'll see. And then Jacksonville. So right now they have a very low game total, but I'm wondering if this is because they think Trevor Lawrence isn't going to play. If he does play, Tennessee is a very good team to target with wide receivers. So I love Christian Kirk this week. And obviously on the other side, if Treylon Burks plays, Jacksonville could be susceptible to the pass too. So this is a game that could certainly, I think, go a little under the radar if, everyone gets healthy for this game. Obviously, Derrick Henry, he's had some down weeks, so he could be due to pop, but the matchup doesn't look that great. So probably not counting on it this week, but just something to keep in mind. As far as tournaments, you want to have a little bit of exposure to him. Yeah, Tennessee giving up an average of 7.7 points to the wide receiver, above average. So that is definitely something you want to target with like a Christian Kirk. Now, Kansas City, next game, Kansas City and Denver, low game total as well, 43.5. Kansas City coming off a loss, probably going to be pissed. This is a high games team total for them, 26.5. So if you wanted to do Mahomes stacks, I wouldn't get too crazy with it. Mahomes +1, Mahomes plus Kelsey, bring it back with maybe a Judy. Cortland Sutton, he's not expected to play. Greg Dulcich is really cheap. So that would be what you could do with this game. For me, as far as the Broncos, it's kind of funny. Russell Wilson, you'll see, he's popping in the Dom station a little bit. Some of the Broncos pass catchers are, just because they're so cheap at this point. And you got to think that Kansas City can score a lot of points, even though the Broncos defense is good. It's not that good. They've been beat before. Like Devontae Adams went off for like 30 points a few weeks ago. So they can get beat. Kansas City, we know they're matchup proof. They will score points. So if you think Kansas City is going to go way up and Denver is going to be trailing and from behind and forced to throw the ball, maybe Denver will kind of come out of their shell a little bit, and they can certainly make value on some of their plays. I'm not telling you to stack Denver side. I wouldn't. It'd be silly at this point. But they are popping in the Dom station a little bit. So even if you were just looking to do some Kansas City stacks and then a bring back with like a Dulcich, who's really cheap, and for tight ends, who's been very good over the past month and a half, you could certainly do that, but obviously wouldn't attack it on the Denver side with stacks. Carolina and Seattle. This is the next game. So this game is interesting to me because there's a lot here potentially based on injury news. So on Carolina side, Seattle is a very poor run defense. One of the worst in the league. In fact, Seattle gives up an average, above average, 6 points above average to the running back position. So Donta Foreman, if he does play this week, I love him this week. If not, I love Chuba Hubbard this week, just based on their salaries. And then on the other side, Carolina, not the best run defense either. So who is going to play for Seattle? Is it going to be Travis Homer? If Travis Homer plays, he slides in. He's very cheap. I believe he's $15. So a lot of pieces to like here. And then there's also, just looking at it, you could just say, well, maybe Seattle is just not going to run the ball this week because they're so banged up at running back. They're going to go through the air. So DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Geno Stacks, I certainly like that. This game is kind of projected close and back and forth, just under 45, but the Statsational Power Rankings think this game could go a little bit higher. So we'll see about that. And then we have Tampa and San Francisco, last one on the main slate. Low game total, not a lot for me here. Tampa Bay, they came back, obviously, the other night. And, at the very end, it did quite well. But San Francisco has a really good defense. On the other side, San Francisco, they lost Jimmy G. They got Big Cock Brock, or whatever his name is, Brock Purdy. He stole that from Brock Osweiler, by the way. We said that in Denver when Brock Osweiler was here. But it's fine. I'll let it go. But he's starting. And you got to think, really, The only person that's in play at this point now is Christian McCaffrey. The offense is probably going to run through him. I don't like him just with the low game total in cash games, and Tampa Bay having a good defense. I don't like him in cash games, but certainly in tournaments, I think he is in play. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to run through some of my players that I like from. This is an article that I'm starting to write, and this will be out later this evening. But we have Jalen Hurts. Really, he's just matchup proof with his floor, with his running floor, and with his pass catchers. Amon-Ra, Devonta Smith. He's good for 20 plus a game with those, and he's $39. I'm gonna go over to the Dom station and get his exact price. But yeah, he's $39, and I love him this week. You know, obviously the second highest projection behind only Josh Allen, and I love Josh Allen too, even though he obviously had a bad game last time he played New York. He still scored like 26 points. So with his rushing ability, with his pass catchers, everything, Diggs, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, Knox, some of the running backs taking passes out of the backfield like James Cook. Regardless, Josh Allen just has a really high floor, and he also has a really high ceiling. So I don't like to, specifically at quarterback, I don't like to get crazy with it in cash games. I want that high floor. I want a quarterback that I know can score 20 for me. When I look at the game logs and I see games of 6 points, 8 points, that will just absolutely crush a cash lineup. So that's why, even though Jared Goff projects really well this week, he's more so a tournament play for me and not a cash game play. Dak Prescott, he projects well. This has a really good passing projection this week for Dallas. Just overall team total, they have 28-point team total. And that's by the Statsational Power Rankings, but actually via the Vegas lines. Let's take a look here, actually. 31 points. So, yeah, highest team total on the slate. He's got CeeDee Lamb. He's got Gallup. He's got Schultz and Hendershot. Like all these different pass catchers. Plus, he's got Tony Pollard coming out of the backfield, who's just electric. So, he can get there a lot of different ways. So, I do think Dak is in play this week. In fact, if you look at fantasy points per dollar, yeah, he's the second highest this week, just behind Kenny Pickett. And obviously, Kenny Pickett, that's going to be more of a tournament play for me. So I like Dak as well. So we'll go over to running backs. Now, running back is kind of messy this week, but I'm not going to pay all the way up because of it. Just because the top guys, they just don't have the best matchups. And they really have not exceeded their matchups in a lot of games this year, like Derrick Henry, for example, or Saquon Barkley. So Joe Mixon, he's had the concussion. He's been out, but obviously once he's cleared, he's a full go. He's got fresh legs, and he's going against the league's second worst run defense. So he's a smash in all formats if he clears concussion protocol. Dalvin Cook, he does project really well this week against a poor Detroit defense. So even though Detroit's defense does defend the run quite well, so I would say Cook is probably more of a tournament play for me. I would, rather go Joe Mixon and then, some of the other guys on the $20 range that I'm going to go for. But I do love his salary in this game environment for his usage. He's getting 24 touches a game in the past 2 games. So definitely think you need to have some tournament exposure to Dalvin Cook. Now, Ezekiel Elliott. Houston has the 3rd worst run D in the league. Again, I want Pollard in tournaments, but I want Zeke in cash. He's a $6 discount from Pollard. And he's got 7 touchdowns in the past 5 games. And we need touchdowns on Yahoo's half PPR format. Dameon Pierce, I mentioned it. His ceiling to me is limited because Houston's offense is poor and they get negative game scripts. But he gets a lot of volume, so he is a fine cash play for his usage and salary. DeAndre Swift, 18 touches last week, had over 110 yards and a touchdown. assuming he's a full go, because, he popped up on the injury report with an ankle injury now. He's a great play at $16 and a high projected game total. I won't specifically, with him being on the injury report again, and him just kind of being banged up this year, I don't want to play him in cash. I would lean Pierce at $16, but Swift in tournaments, yeah, you can certainly go there. Now, kind of talked about this. Injury pending, Donta Foreman going against Seattle. It's Seattle, very poor run defense. So actually, Seattle has the worst run defense in the league, giving up 6 points above average to the running back position. So Donta Foreman, he slides in for me as a great cash play this week. We know how good he can be. We've seen it multiple times this year. I mean, he's been in winning GPP builds. So Foreman is $23, and Chuba Hubbard is $14. So if Foreman doesn't play, Chuba Hubbard is an absolute lock at $14. Gosh, you might, here I am clicking wrong buttons. You might just want to have full exposure, just lock him in type situation. If he's only $14, Donta Foreman is ruled out, and we get Chuba Hubbard, and he will certainly be the chalk. Far as wide receivers, so let's move on there. Justin Jefferson, he's a top 5 wide receiver in the game. We know this. He made catch of the year, easily catch of the year. One of the best catches you've ever seen this year going against Buffalo. This is a top 5 wide receiver in a shootout game environment going against an opposing defense that gives up 3.7 points above average to the wide receiver position. So love Justin Jefferson this week. I don't know that I will pay up for him unless we get Travis Homer or Chuba Hubbard. Then you could certainly pay up for Justin Jefferson. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, he will be in my cash lineup. Once again, as I said, DFS Army was all over it last week, but he gives up Minnesota, giving up 5 points above average to the wide receiver position. This is a 52.75 projected game total. Just another match spot for Amon-Ra, and we love him at his price. He's $27. Christian Kirk, again, as I mentioned, Tennessee gives up 7.71 points above average to the wide receiver position. So specifically, if Trevor Lawrence plays, I don't want any backup, and then, I'm paying $26 for Christian Kirk chalk, and we don't know how the offense is going to be. I'm not going there if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play, but if he does play, I'm definitely having Christian Kirk in my lineup with his elite volume. And then, CeeDee Lamb, one of the top fantasy points per dollar plays on the slate and the highest projected team total at tight end. We will go over to the Dom station at this point. And this is typically how I'm going to choose my tight ends. Now, TJ Hawkinson, I love him this week. Revenge game narrative. It is a thing. Teams want to show out against their old team, specifically a team that traded them. We saw it last week with A.J. Brown. TJ Hawkinson going against Detroit, $22. He is a pay up. I'm not going there in cash. I will not go there in cash. However, in tournaments, TJ Hawkinson, yes, get exposure to TJ Hawkinson. Absolutely. If you want to go there in cash, you find enough value. Awesome. He's a fine cash play, but I prefer pay down options at tight end and defense because those are high variance positions. So Dulcich, popping as the top fantasy points per dollar play over on the Dom station. Tyler Conklin, another really good play as well. And then with Dulcich, the Broncos, they're going to be without Sutton. So the offense is going to be very condensed. It's going to be Judy. It's going to be Dulcich. It's going to be Kendall Hinton. So I think Greg Dulcich is actually a really good tournament. Well, a cash and tournament play this week, of course, at only $13. More so in cash. I'm not sure he has the upside at this point in tournaments, but definitely a good cash game play for me. I like Noah Fant too. He's only $11. He's popping. Pat Fryermuth just did the MME Million Maker review on DFS Army's YouTube channel. All the top DFS pros were all over Pat Fryermuth last week. He's popping again this week. So he's certainly a play at, just in the mid-teens essentially. So I like all these plays here, these top four here. They're popping in the Dom station. And then defenses. We have the Steelers, $12 going against Tyler Huntley. Okay, you got a backup quarterback. I don't hate that. Cincinnati Bengals going against Cleveland Browns. I like that too. Deshaun Watson came back last week. He looked rusty. And couple things there. A little bit of karma, probably. Rightfully so. Second thing, he hadn't played in 2 years. So, we can't just act like someone's going to be able to take off 2 years at the highest level and not have any rust. So that was to be expected. And you know what? There will probably be a continuation of that. So I'm not banking him to be really good anytime soon. So I'm not surprised that the Bengals defense is popping on the Dom station. He's probably going to continue to be rusty for a while. So $11. And then the Cleveland Browns, it's kind of funny normally when you see this happening, when you see two defenses in the same game popping in the Dom station, that means you need to get exposure to both of them because it's probably going to be a scenario where one of those defenses goes off. The Cleveland Browns, the last time they played the Cincinnati Bengals, they did get after Joe Burrow a lot. Now, obviously, they were a bit banged up, so we'll see how it goes this time. But yeah, they scored 14 points. That was week 8. So I can see why they're popping. And then Denver going against Kansas City. Denver has played Kansas City tough the past several times, but their offense is even worse than it used to be. So, I probably would prefer Cleveland or Cincinnati or Pittsburgh as opposed to Denver at $10. As far as my top stack of the week, let's go ahead and we're going to look at FanDuel because the ownership projections aren't quite there yet. Those should be fixed very soon. I just reached out to our guy who does all that, so that'll be fixed. Now, the reason I use FanDuel for these when they're not live on DFS Army is assuming there's no big salary changes as far as pricing between FanDuel and Yahoo. These are going to be very similar because they use the same scoring, so it's half PPR. I love Goff this week. Over on Yahoo, he's only $28. So coming in at under 10% ownership so far. I love Goff stacks with Amon-Ra. You can obviously do the other side of that, stacking Cousins. He looks to be even less owned than Goff, Cousins with Jefferson, really just because it's going to be expensive probably. But there are a lot of ways you can get different. Thielen, KJ Osborne. But I probably my top Yahoo stack of the week and just a great game environment and cheap, being able to hit both Jared Goff and Amon-Ra at just over $50 of $200 salary. I love that this week. So as far as some of the top leverage plays, I think Patrick Mahomes going against Denver defense at like 6 to 8%. That's what I've seen today. I certainly like that. Joe Burrow going against Cleveland. Didn't play very well last time. I could certainly see Joe Burrow stacks. And, I talked about this earlier. Joe Mixon is in such a great matchup that okay, got a little bit of battery left. Joe Mixon is in such a good matchup that he's probably going to be mega chalk, and rightfully so. But a way to get to direct leverage off of that is playing Joe Burrow stacks. Joe Burrow, Chase, Higgins. Low game total. Tyler Huntley made it into the GPP winning lineups of the Millie Maker, for example, last year with Mark Andrews, if he's going to be projected under 3% ownership because of the low game total, yeah, I'll take some shots there. If Ezekiel Elliott's really going to be low owned, I love Zeke this week. Houston, horrible run defense. Everyone loves Pollard. That's fine. Yeah, 17%. I love Pollard too, guys. But I'm going to take the chance that maybe Zeke's going to get in the end zone a few times, because he's got 7 touchdowns in 5 games. So he's getting in the end zone. He's getting the goal line carry. He's going to be 3% owned. Absolutely. Devin Singletary, if he's going to be 3%, we'll see where Allen and Diggs and them end up. Yeah, absolutely. That's a guy we're certainly seeing getting goal line carries. So I would certainly be all about it. Wide receivers, Jamar Chase in Burrow stacks, 100%. A.J. Brown, we talked about Jalen Hurts +1. A.J. Brown. Matchup doesn't project as well. Doesn't matter. DK Metcalf, you going to be low owned again? Telling you, there is a very good scenario where they lose Kenneth Walker. They're so banged up at running back. Maybe they just rely on Geno going through the air as he did last week when he smashed with both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So, yeah, if these guys are going to be low owned, absolutely. Christian Kirk, fantastic matchup. We've gone over it a couple times. Got to do it. DJ Moore, low ownership. A couple weeks ago, he smoked Patrick Surtain a couple times, even though Seattle has a pretty good rookie corner. If that game does go off a little bit, which it definitely has some potential, one of the higher projected games from the Statsational Power Rankings, really about 48 points based on his projection model. Yeah, I would like DJ Moore at about 5% ownership. And then we have Travis Kelce. He's going to be chalk. Dalton Schultz. Everyone's going to be focusing on the running backs in that game. How many times do we watch a team run the ball, a run for the end zone for a touchdown is called back on a penalty, backs them up, and then what do? They throw it to the tight end. How many times have you watched that same scenario play out in games? So, yeah, get a shot at the tight, get some exposure to the tight end in that game. Absolutely. Some direct leverage off of a lot of Pollard chalk. 4%. Absolutely. Noah Fant, we just talked about Metcalf and Lockett, same thing. Dawson Knox. How does Stephon Diggs project right now? Yeah, so pretty chalky. So, yeah, Dawson Knox could be a good leverage play as well there. And as far as defenses, you want defenses that aren't going to be chalky. If Kansas City, because of their price, if they end up being low owned going against Denver, who's trying to keep up with them, trying to force the tempo, Russell Wilson's taking sacks. He's taking shots downfield, trying to push the pace a little bit because, they're down 2 touchdowns. Absolutely, Kansas City's defense can feast, with turnovers and whatnot. Seattle Seahawks going against Sam Darnold. Low ownership as well. Absolutely. And then we talked about Cincinnati going against Cleveland. Deshaun Watson being rusty. That is certainly a scenario where you could see Deshaun Watson turning the ball over. So that's going to do it for this week. If you like this type of content, be sure to please comment. Feel free to comment. If there's someone that you like in Yahoo this week, let us know. And then subscribe, of course. I know a lot of y'all watch the YouTube podcast, but not necessarily subscribe. So hit the subscribe button. Also hit that notification button so that you never miss an episode. Specifically, we go live every week on Friday with Tournament Tactics, a great GPP show. Some of the best GPP minds at DFS Army. I promise you, you listen to this show, you listen to some of the players they talk about, and then you review lineups each and every week and winning lineups, and you see the same players in those. So a lot of knowledge to be gained from those shows. Definitely hit that notification button so you don't miss when we go live. Hope you all have a great week. Smash. And we'll see you next week.